Good morning and welcome to another in the series of brand designs with myself, James Davey, and we have Nathan, as per usual, sitting in the wings from Quickfire Digital. Good morning, Nathan. How are you?
JD, I'm very well, thank you. How are you?
Very good, and we're pleased to have with us today David and Rishma from Root Kitchen. Good morning, guys. How are you?
Good, thank you.
Good. Nice to meet you both.
Absolutely, and yourself. So the opening gambit for us is always tell us a little bit about Root Kitchen and where you are in your journey at the moment. Just give us a little bit of a background.
So we'll tell you how Root Kitchen came about. So obviously David and I are, David's my brother-in-law, so it's quite a strange combination. And I have had some health issues over the last few years, and decided that I would trial a number of different diets to see if that could help me in any way, because I needed some form of relief, and I wasn't getting it any medical way. So plant-based diet was one of the main diets that I trialed, and as I was doing it, I began researching into just the plant-based industry because I found it quite fascinating. And David was also very interested at the same time, and we just I think it was a family birthday. We were just chatting at the end of the table, and we both just expressed how much we found it interesting and how good we thought it would be to do some plant-based meals, and it just went from there, really.
So to give you a bit of background as well, Rishma's mother set up a ready meal manufacturing business. So Rish, you're probably better placed.
Yeah, so I work also with my family. We make ready made, and Layla, my mum, set up a company called Layla's Fine Foods about 35 years ago now. And so I've been in the food industry for a long time. I've seen lots of different trends, lots of different things. And I suppose that's where my inspiration came from. I needed to do something different. I wanted to do something for myself rather than something that was just within the family as a whole, because there's a few of us. And David felt the same. So that's how we got to here. So, but we in our other business produce ready-made meals for the supermarkets and food service.
Guys, I've been dying to ask, in terms of the process that goes on behind getting these ready meals to market, so many people maybe just see a ready meal on the shelf and just think it's been chucked together. But talking in the green room about the taste tests and all sorts, I found it so fascinating. Just share a little bit about the process that you have to go through just to get the quality of meal that you want to be delivering, Rich, particularly around the taste tests. I found that amazing.
So every day I do a taste panel with the quality team and the MPD team, and we are checking products that were produced from the previous day. We're just checking the quality against the quality attributes as to where they should be, making sure that we're happy with them. So we do end up tasting quite a lot of food every day, but it's really important to make sure that everything that we're producing is how it's supposed to be. And sometimes we will do consistency panels as well. So we'll compare different batch codes against each other just to check that it is in line with where it should be. Because sometimes when you're looking at just one product alone, it will seem fine, but then you don't see the difference unless you compare it against other ones that you've made previously. So we're hot on it. We try and quality is up there as one of the most important things for us.
And I suppose that comes from obviously the family business producing for the supermarkets, having done not in your sector, but producing for supermarkets in the past. The quality element is ridiculous, isn't it, in terms of their spot checking and what they do to make sure that quality goes through their doors before it goes into their customers.
Definitely, it's so important. And with this being our own brand, we want to be proud of our products, and we want customers to come back to try them and buy them again. I think if there's any issues and someone has a meal and they don't enjoy it, then they're not going to come back. So it's so important. It's such a big part of the business.
And so does that go, David? Please, sorry.
No, Rishma is a real perfectionist when it comes to meals. Honestly, I've been itching to get this root kitchen launched for like 6 months before we actually launched, but she was like tweaking, developing the range and getting it absolutely perfect before we could launch. Really.
Yeah, I needed to make sure that the product was just right, flavour profile wise, appearance wise, and that it was something that we could do in the process as well, because it's all very well developing products in the development, but when you put them into the factory, that's sometimes where the issues come up.
Yeah.
And you have to be mindful that a factory environment is slightly different to a development kitchen, so it's very important things that will definitely fit into the process correctly, and that you end up with the product that you wanted to.
And I suppose that's something for quite a lot of people looking to get into this industry in some ways, whether it's food or drink. That difference between, as you say, a development kitchen and batch cooking is significantly different, isn't it? In terms of what are the kind of 2 or 3 things that you'd say to someone looking to come into the market to say, actually, here are the things you need to be aware of in that difference?
I'd say it really depends on the process and the way that everybody cooks, but I'd be very sure to analyse the product in the development kitchen first, so you know exactly how you want it, and be prepared to have to make some changes when you go to the factory, because things, nothing ever goes to plan in food manufacturing from development to factory. So you just have to be open to making some slight tweaks to the product to get it where it needs to be. I think one thing that we see from scaling up from the factory is its source consistency, actually, and it's the level of cauliflower in the product always needs to be tweaked, because it's so much different working in such a bigger scale of recipe.
And does that mean, looking back at that 6 months of preparation to go live, Dave, you mentioned it kind of 6 months that you kind of looked at getting stuff up and running, a little bit longer by the sounds of things. Now, in hindsight, would you have not taken that as much time, or no? It's.
I think that it was important to take the time because it was our first range of meals, and it wasn't just the time tweaking those recipes that we've launched. We were looking at a huge number of recipes and deciding out of them which ones we could whittle down to the 10 that we were going to launch. So it was a long process. I think next time it won't take as long, because we'll probably know where we want to go with the products, but because it was a new business altogether, it just took a little bit longer.
David, let's start looking at the marketing side. In terms of marketing and sales, how did you go through that process of identifying the ideal customer profile and then choosing the channels to go after them? Is that something that you looked after? And if so, what was the process you went through to say, okay, we're going to focus our attention on social media perhaps as opposed to Google ads, or we're going to do this versus that?
So obviously we looked at the market and we saw other companies. Obviously, we're not the only people that are doing this at the moment with plant-based in such a big boom. And I guess it was just looking at where they were active, because obviously there's a market that's been created already, and there's a customer base that's active and engaging with these brands. And we found that, some channels, they were more active than others, and I guess that's where we wanted to focus ourselves. Because obviously there's a market being created, but we need to create our brand and get it in front of people. So
it's knowing that balance between getting the brand positioned, isn't it, and also making sure that you've got enough of an audience there that is going to buy into that brand. In many ways, it's trying to find that balance of product and audience.
Definitely, and that's the good thing about launching as a D2C brand as well. So we've kind of taken it. We didn't burst straight into it and start throwing loads of money at social media marketing. We wanted to grow our audience, say on Instagram, quite organically at first, because you get to know your customer, and that's the good thing about launching as a D2C brand rather than going straight into retail. You can kind of refine your products, learn what people like, what they don't like, and even in terms of recipe development, we ran a competition before we launched, where our followers could suggest dishes that they'd like to see, and we had some really interesting entries in that.
We did, yeah. It was really interesting. Some great ideas.
But going back to what you said, then you can have something that looks amazing and tastes amazing, but when it comes to scaling it up, Rishma and her team of MPD chefs had to do quite a lot of work to make sure we chose something that would work in the factory.
We did, and because these recipes that were developed and sent to us were from people's kitchens, and it was very much on a smaller scale. And what might be quite easy to do, that easy to do in a factory. So yeah, we were careful, but that we chose in the end, the aubergine noodles, is such a lovely dish. It really is. So.
Let's address the elephant in the room, which is the brother-in-law, sister-in-law combination. I mean, many people are like, okay, yeah, we won't go into business with family. Maybe I'm doing some work where one of the other episodes in series 2 is she's working with a mother and father. But actually, brother-in-law, sister-in-law, I'm so intrigued. How did you, well, obviously it came about at this kind of dining table, and you've kind of been in that world a little time. But how does it work now in terms of roles and responsibilities? Do you ever find each other treading on each other's toes, or are you quite good in terms of knowing where the line is?
I think we're working quite well together. I mean, David's incredibly laid back and I'm incredibly hot-tempered. So, it actually just really works very, very well together. And we know, I'm no expert at marketing. That is not my forte at all. My skills lie within products and product costing and sales. David, that's good at the marketing side of things.
And similarly, you wouldn't want to eat anything that I cook for you. So
that was the very easy early decision, was it?
Yeah.
Definitely.
So yeah, and
Nice.
we appreciate each other's opinions on our areas that we look after. Yeah. And I think it's just a matter of respect. So I respect David and he respects me, and it seems to work. And I can't say there's not moments where sometimes I might sort of just grit my teeth or whatever, but it doesn't happen I have to say it doesn't happen very often. I mean, I've worked with families for 15 years now, and David and my relationship is the least volatile relationship out of all of them, definitely.
Do you find go on, David, sorry.
The other good thing about having two founders as well is I'll just rush in and do something if I think it's great. I'm dying to do it. And Rishma, like I said before, is a real perfectionist. So to have a balance, maybe to kind of restrain me from kind of going straight into things is probably quite a good thing.
Definitely. I like to take my time with decisions and make sure it's the right thing. So.
You often find some of the best teams have that balance of what I call a reactor and a reflector. So the two together are kind of, they balance each other out, or can balance each other out very well. So it does often make a very good team, especially when boards are being made up in business, trying to find collaborative souls that often are, it's from that great poet Paul Abdul, opposites attract. It's that kind of really weird piece of getting different people's views in a room to debate it. Half the bit about growing a business is having healthy conversation and argument. There's nothing wrong with that in the slightest. From a respect perspective, do you think, having come from a family business and generating a family business, does respect just naturally come as part of that family network, or do you feel as though that's a different hurdle that you have to overcome in the business mindset?
I mean, obviously I respect all my family members, but I think sometimes when when there's more than two of you, sometimes the respect does go out the window because there's too many different opinions sometimes. Working in a family business is difficult, but it's also extremely rewarding at the same time. I suppose the way that you speak to your family is not necessarily how you speak to a colleague.
Very true.
So like I said earlier, that I'm slightly hot-tempered. None of my colleagues that I work with that aren't my family know that about me. It's really only my family that get to see that side of me. So I think you act slightly family than you would with just normal colleagues.
Definitely.
And that cuts through all the kind of niceties, and you get to the real issue and get it resolved, I guess, a lot quicker.
Very much so. So in terms of mentoring and your kind of inspiration behind what you do, Are there any external parties or people that you look up to and go, actually, for Root Kitchen, that's where we want to be. That's our kind of support network. That's our kind of goal. Where would you see that in your?
I think obviously your mum's had an amazing story.
My mum is, someone that I really look up to. She's extremely talented with food, and she just wants to give people good food. She's done incredibly well with the business that she's got, and was awarded an MBE for services to the food and drink industry. So, she definitely is a huge inspiration to me. But in terms of, the plant-based market and the plant-based business, it's all a bit new to me. And there's lots of different companies that I think are doing amazing jobs. There's so many people out there that are really pushing this forward, and I think it's fantastic. But I don't personally at this moment have someone that I'd say is my inspiration for that type of thing.
We are on the Pro-Veg incubator as well, which has been really interesting. So we're about halfway through it, and that's one of the leading plant-based business incubators. And as part of that, we've been on loads of really interesting workshops. So, you're learning from people who've been through starting up.
Yeah, it's a number of different person.
Definitely. And you learn about all sorts. Obviously, you have modules on marketing, food, law. They have previous cohorts coming back on and giving you an update, and it shows you that obviously, whilst everything's kind of seeming a struggle sometimes, there's people who've been through what you're doing and come out the other side. So,
would you say your family were particularly supportive when you announced that you were going to go into business together, or was there much reluctance or hesitation that actually, if it didn't work out, it could cause a drive between a kind of wedge between the family?
I think they were actually quite supportive. I think they were a little bit jealous that we'd come up with a new idea and that we were doing it together more than anything. But
splinter group.
Pardon?
A splinter group.
Yeah, but I think we've had nothing but support from them. What do you think, David?
No, they're really entrepreneurial family. So, at the end of the day, it's Rishma's family business. They're going to be the meals. So if we can kind of bring more profitable business to their business and win as well.
And have you talked much about the story behind the brand in terms of Rish? Obviously, it was based off your challenges that you've then gone. Have you had to then become the face of the brand? And if so, how have you both found getting behind the camera and building this personal brand as well as the business brand?
I think it's been. We've not got behind the camera that much so far. I don't have any issues with it at all. I'm quite an open person. I think we're very much equal, isn't it, in terms of the face of the business? I mean, David spends a lot more time talking to other people in the industry than I do, because I'm often quite factory based as well in my role, so I'm not always in an office.
So I think going back onto that, Rishma's is the story. So she found the pain point. Basically, what we want to do with Root Kitchen is make quality, nutritious, affordable and accessible to others. So not everyone can afford the recipe boxes that you get every month.
Yeah.
And that was the pain point that we're looking to kind of fill. So
a lot of the D2C companies it's expensive, and I just said to David, it's not fair from just because you want to eat a plant-based diet that you have to pay so much money. And I get why they're expensive, because a lot of the raw materials are expensive, the factory process is more expensive being vegan, there's a lot more work that needs to go into the segregation and stuff in the factory. But I just said to David, wouldn't it be good if we could give something that was more affordable and a bit more mainstream as well, because as much as the other companies' products are fantastic, for me, I'm not really the sort of person that wanted to eat lots of seeds and loads of different textures in my food all the time. Some days you just want to have a standard meal, but I just wanted a plant-based standard meal, and I think that's really where we've gone for, to make it affordable and a bit more mainstream.
And I think
What does success look like? Go on, Jenny.
I think that's really, £4.50 a mil. You buy into your box of 10, for example, you're at £4.50 a mil, which I think, as an average consumer is perfectly manageable, especially when you sit it alongside other ready meals in the market. You trip down to Tesco, Sainsbury's, wherever to kind of pick up your ready meal. It sits in that kind of area. And then that's for a standard spaghetti carbonara on the shelf. The minute you start putting it alongside a vegan-based meal or plant-based meal, and I think I'd love to ask that question in a minute in terms of, is there a difference between the two? And the positioning looks to be really, really solid for you to be able to both scale from direct to consumer, but also potentially, because of your network as well into the retailers, start to push this out into a retail network. Is that something that you're looking towards doing in terms of, without giving away any trade secrets, but is that part of your plan?
Yeah, that's definitely something that we want to do going forward, and I think we really want to concentrate on the D2C going forward, and we want to move to some point. But the D2C, like David said earlier, is the best way to start, because you can understand your products and what the customers want a little bit more first before you go there.
It means that you move away from a focus group of one, doesn't it? The just asking one particular individual, which is the retailing buyer, as to whether they like it or not. So it's really good.
The £4.50 price point, obviously from a marketing perspective, how much cost per acquisition is of new customers online, especially in the vegan space at the moment. So I can understand obviously why these meals are a little bit more expensive, and also sending frozen products out anyway in boxes is expensive. You can't get away from that. You need the right insulation, you need it to be eco-friendly, and you need it to get there quickly. So that's why they're more expensive, but you're paying for convenience. And we ideally our factory is set up for manufacturing and into retail, rather than picking and packing orders to go out D2C, because that, as we've got bigger, that is hard work, and it's something that we've not done before.
David does that side of things. I'll leave the picking and the packing to David, but it is a lot of work, isn't it? And
so I'm desperately ringing around supermarkets at the moment just so I can get out of that freezer, to be honest, and
If you guys could roll back the clocks, what would you do differently in the short time it's been going? Is there anything you think, crumbs, if we'd known what we know now back then, we certainly wouldn't have done that?
Two things that spring to mind. First of all, when we first set up to cut corners and use a standard box that we had in the factory for sending samples out, and we were going to use it as our box for sending out to customers, but we sent some meals out to our photographer, who is only probably about an hour away, but he arrived the next day and he sent a picture. Do you remember that?
Yeah, they'd not travelled well, so.
Yeah, the box had fallen apart, and that was like the week before we launched, so there was a big scrabble around here. Yeah. And also, I think sometimes when it comes to online marketing, it is a lot of people are quick to, and us included, there's a funnel, isn't there? So we kind of put ourselves straight out there, throwing loads of money at social media marketing, when perhaps the website wasn't set up to convert correctly. And since we started taking a step back, our conversion rate's gone a lot better, because we've been looking at driving traffic through other sources and then retargeting through social media, rather than kind of, I heard an analogy about a leaky bucket once, where obviously I'm not claiming it's mine or anything, but if you're pouring a load of water into a leaking bucket, then it's the same with social media. You can throw loads of money at it, but if your website's not set up to convert properly, then you're going to be wasting a lot, aren't you? Before.
Completely agree. Yeah, especially when you start talking about most brands in a subscription space, which is where you are, in some respects, they very rarely ever make profit on the first order, or the second order, or sometimes even the third order. So, for many brands, in order to get cut through in the market, that remarketing and that consistent brand conversation that needs to hit home with the target market just keeps going and keeps going. it's a constant kind of battle to make sure the creative's already updated and you're getting the best quality imagery you can get and little videos. And it's quite tiring, isn't it? It's quite a battle to kind of keep on top of that constant creative churn.
It is, but it's quite interesting, and I think with us, Rishma and I have funded this business ourselves so far, and with having a limited budget against other people in the market who are, either from a much larger brand or they've got VC funding and a lot more cash to burn through, then it makes you kind of really careful with where you put your marketing budget and try and get the absolute most for it. So
I do think that's a trait, though. I think actually we see larger brands, having come from both sides of the coin, larger brands with larger budgets tend to, I'm going to say it, they tend to be slightly lazy in terms of some of their marketing, because it's all brand awareness and it's all kind of great. That is really important, but turning, it's like opening a store with no till. It kind of defeats the object, really, doesn't it?
Yeah.
David, what have you learned in terms of conversion? I'm really interested to find out. Again, so many brands come to us and they think they've got a traffic problem and they're not getting enough people, but actually the website's not sweating hard enough. What are some of the things that you guys changed to improve that conversion? You say you took a step back and maybe made some tweaks. Was there anything in particular you did on the website that really helped improve conversion rate?
Yeah, so there's a couple. I think we're on the third or fourth iteration of the checkout process now. So that still is probably not where it needs to be for us in terms of like a one-click checkout. We would like to move towards something like that. But I think a lot of what we've learned is happen off the website as well. So we've always managed to get decent levels of traffic through. But I think we're focusing more on SEO and Google PPC in terms of the top of the funnel marketing activities, because people, you can come up with all this lovely content and put it out to people who've got an interest in vegan foods and stuff, but if they're not at that kind of consideration or decision-making stage, then you're wasting a lot. And that's something that we've just looked to refine the way that we're bringing kind of qualified leads to the site instead of just as many people as possible.
Yeah, and what have you seen in terms of loyalty? Do you find that once someone's chosen their manufacturer, that actually they tend to stick them for years and years and years and are very reluctant to switch? Or do you think actually the second you come in a little bit more competitively on price or maybe a slightly better taste, then they're happy to jump?
No, I think there's some other good companies in the space, and so there's 4 or 5 weeks in a month. There's 4 or 5 other companies. So we get people who order from us every week or every couple of weeks, and then you'll get some who'll probably want to order from us once a month, and then try some of the other people. But that again links into what Rish is doing, because we've launched with a range of 10, but we want to give our most loyal subscribers, especially the people who are ordering every week, more of an option. So it's hard enough to acquire a new customer in terms of the amount that you've got to spend to do it. So it's a lot easier to kind of give the customers that you have got something else, and keep them kind of in your pool, if that makes sense.
Completely.
So that's why Rich is tasting and working hard at the moment.
That's it. Lots more ideas and lots more products to come. Definitely.
What's the kind of customer feedback been around plant-based for a family? So let me ask the question: is there a difference between plant-based and vegan?
It is pretty much this. It's the same thing. It's just that I always refer to it as plant-based rather than vegan. I find vegan a little bit more of a because I think we are also targeting flexitarians as well as vegans. So I think plant-based just sounds a little bit more open. So that's why I always use that terminology.
So we've done quite a lot of research on customer type as well, and I think where we're positioning ourselves is the busy midweek meal time. So if you're coming in for an evening meal and you're reaching into your freezer, you're trying to cut down on your meat intake, whether it be through the week or in general, all the time. If you can reach into your freezer and have a plant-based meal there, as opposed to like the equivalent meat-based products, then it'll help you stick to your diet and your plant-based diet, and
because I mean, lots of people that are moving towards vegan or plant-based, I think it isn't they don't just stop dead with eating meat. Some people do. It depends what the reasons of why they're doing it. But they sort of transition across. And for me, I think that any help better, because there's obviously so many benefits, not just for that person themselves, but environmentally as well. That any help towards that is a great thing.
We often talk about kind of challenges and the negatives of the business, but very rarely the positives. What's happened in the last kind of 12 months that you've both been incredibly proud of? Do you think, you know what, that was absolutely excellent? We're so proud we did that.
Yeah, so from a personal perspective, I've just really enjoyed being involved, like learning as well, and kind of being involved in stuff like the Pro Veg Incubator, listening to loads of podcasts, developing myself and stuff. But the other side of things, I don't know if Rishma gets any kind of pleasure out of the meals that she's created.
Oh yeah, I do.
Are on people's tables. There's nothing more personal than food, is it?
And actually, one of the lovely things is that we haven't had much negative feedback about the product. So I love it. I love reading the positive reviews. That's something, and that makes me really happy just to think that someone's come home probably after a hard day at work and they've heated one of our meals up and they've had a really nice meal. So to do. I'd hate for anyone to go home one night, have one of our meals and have a terrible time. That's not what you want, is it? So all the positive reviews are great. They really give us encouragement.
Some people's taste buds are obviously very different. So, how do you deal with that negative review? Because I know quite a lot of owner founders take it very personally and very much to heart. Does that hit you quite hard when you do get them?
It can do. I think because I've worked in the food industry for quite a while, I'm used to it, and I understand that everybody's food tastes are different, and something that someone likes the other person might not like. But yeah, I am passionate about what I do, so I can't say that it doesn't hurt a little bit, but I try and just have a little bit of thick skin and get on with it. But I will always, if there's a negative review, I'll always go back and look at that product, or have a chat just to make sure that we're happy with it ourselves. But I don't think we've had that many negative reviews, have we, David?
No, to be honest, the negative kind of comments that we've had have been around our learning on the job, picking and packing operation, and sending things out, and they've not arrived in the best condition or time. Yeah, so we kind of changed couriers a couple of times because things were getting delivered late, or just being left and stuff. Yeah, you get that kind of thing, and we've had a few negative comments about that, but we've just seen it as an opportunity to kind of do something good for our customers as well. Buying our meals and having an inconvenience is supposed to be convenient. So if we can go back to a customer and make good on what we've done wrong operationally, then it gives us an opportunity to form a good relationship with the customer. And some of the people that have had that in the early days are actually our best customers now. So
I'd like to go just back to one thing you mentioned earlier, which I think is an incredibly powerful thing to impart, is through the challenges you've faced in every situation so far in scaling this business, you've just said opportunity. It's an opportunity to make our customers happy. It's an opportunity to refine the process. It's an opportunity. That mindset in itself is incredibly rare in young entrepreneurs, they're often taking it very personally. They often feel it as though it's a failure or something they need to just, oh my God, can I really do this? Whereas in fact, what I'm hearing is something really powerful, which is you're seeing pretty much all of these opportunities to just make things better.
I mean, you're never going to launch as the perfect. There's always opportunity to make it better, definitely. David?
Yeah, I mean, the other thing that both of us have got, I think Rishma's worked with her family business, was it 13 years?
Yeah, maybe more, 14, 15
Don't
years.
want to be giving your age
I know,
away,
I'm getting on there.
It's a blur.
I've been involved in it probably for 5 years now, and in that time, you see loads of stuff, all positive and negative.
Yeah.
You go through all sorts. So, you know, what we've been through with Root Kitchen is kind of we've been through with other things ourselves. You know, in the past, isn't it? You know.
But there are so many. To go back to the word opportunity, there are so many opportunities out there. You know, this market, the plant-based market, is growing, and it's a fantastic market, and there's just so much that we can go at, isn't there?
Yeah, there is. I know, obviously, through your 20s, you think you know everything, but when it comes to his mid-30s and stuff, but just talking from a personal perspective here, like you look for ways to improve yourself all the time, whether it's going to the gym or if it's kind of starting running to get your best 10K time, or you know, wanting a little bit extra from a business and develop yourself a little bit more that way. So I don't know. The mindset I've got at the moment might not be like this after another year.
Just to expand on that, guys, in terms of opportunity, and we talked a little bit about patience as well. When an opportunity perhaps doesn't go as you had planned it, or something doesn't work out, do you ever get those entrepreneurial self-doubts where you think, good God, what am I doing here? I'm massively out of my depth, or I'm not qualified to be doing this?
I don't think, from a personal perspective, I haven't felt like that. If there's anything that's been a slight knockback, I probably have half a day of sulking, and then, you know, the next morning I'm up and on with a positive attitude to you know, move on to the next thing. Or if I think that, you know, that knockback is not necessarily correct, just trying to make it right.
I think we're both quite positive in that respect. It's, you know, we've had some really interesting retailer pitches so far. Some have gone great, others not so well. But we both come off the back of them and we're like, oh, well, they said no, but that's probably just a not yet. They're probably just not ready, or we're just not ready yet. So, you know, we'll keep in touch with them and
because
we'll go there again.
We are still a new business, aren't we? And we're still learning. So, you know, there's so much time for us to succeed more than we are. And, you know, so many different opportunities, like we keep saying, to go at. So it's just a case of keep going and keep trying. And just as long as we know we're doing our absolute best, then that's enough, isn't it?
Do you think you'll go eventually to raise funds and to go down the VC route or something like that? I'm keen to hear, what does the future of Root Kitchen look like? Where can we expect to see you guys in 3-5 years' time?
I'm not sure about the VC side of things, if I'm honest. But who knows? You know, it depends what opportunities do come up. If there's something, and you know, that's a fantastic opportunity and we can't afford to do it, then who knows what will happen? It's not out of the picture. It's just not, for me, it's not in my direct line of sight.
So I think both of us have a little bit of a problem with being managed or told what to do. So that, I don't know if that would work well with a VC or anything like that. But
it does massively change the dynamic. It really
does. But you never know, do you?
Like, it just depends how we get on over the next couple of years, I suppose. And because we're not because obviously we want things to progress in a nice pace. We're not in a rush to do everything overnight. So, you know, we want to take our time and build the brand properly, rather than just do everything in a rush. So,
and that's a massively refreshing mindset to hear someone that actually is prepared to wait and to go the hard yards and to not force growth. Unfortunately, I guess we look at our US counterparts and those looking to scale a businesses out there, and suddenly everything is hustle, 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 and you can sleep when you're dead kind of mentality. It's like, well, hold on a minute. How about we enjoy the journey, and how about we take our time to get there? We'll still get there, but it might not be an overnight success. It might be that it takes 3, 4, 5 years to get to where we want to get to.
Yeah, and at least when we get to there, we'll know who we are and what we want to be, because we will have taken that time to consider it. So that's the mindset I have anyway.
Just quickly, how do you both switch off? How do you just escape? Well, obviously you go home, you may talk about work and each other, but then actually, how do you just forget about work and just totally distance yourself and rest?
To be honest, I'm not sure I ever do, but you know, a little bit of exercise, and we're fortunate to live in quite a nice, pretty area, so walking around there is lovely. And spending time with family, because both of us have got children, so you know that children always take up a little bit of time.
The perfect distraction. Yeah.
But you know, as far as work goes, for me, work's always on my mind. I don't think.
Did you resent that, Chris, or do you resent that, Rish, or do you think that's all right? Because again, for me, Russ, recently I've been thinking, oh, you know what, it would be nice just to not think about work for 5 minutes.
Sometimes I suppose that I feel tired from it, but I think it's in my nature and it's the person I am. I think I'd be bored if I wasn't thinking about work. If I'm not saying every time I put the TV on and get into a box set that I'm thinking about work. You know, there is an hour here or a few hours there that you're not. But generally, you know, work's on my mind and putting lists together in my head of what I've got to do and what needs to be done. And I just think it's natural and normal for anyone that's business minded and career minded. Most of my friends are like that as well, I'd say.
I don't know if it's the same for you guys, but like I really value my own space as well. So whether that's going to the gym or going for a run in the morning or walking the dog or playing golf on my own, you know, I think when you're involved in something that's like quite fast paced and all hustle and bustle, that hour to yourself, even if you are thinking about work, does give you a bit of clarity and you know, a different viewpoint on things.
Yes. I don't know I suppose Nathan and I both work in a particular world of agency life is quite social. In terms of you have to make it social in order to kind of build a network and kind of, you know, reach people and talk to people. And unfortunately, I'm a bit of a social butterfly. I have to be talking to someone. I have to be surrounded by someone. My wife tells me if I was on my own, it just wouldn't work. I'd be out immediately looking for the next group of people to come talk to or what's going on and push myself on them. So, you know, if you fancy a round of golf, don't talk to me. Talk to Nathan. He's far better.
I mean, I always. I think the biggest thing is about being present, and I think that's something that all owner founders can probably relate to, is how you can be present in a moment with the children, with the other halves, the wives, the partners, the husbands, the whatevers, while also not thinking about work. And that's something I've really struggled on, is just always. It doesn't matter if I'm getting in the shower, if I'm waking up, if I'm making a coffee, if I'm walking the dog, for sure, I'll be in a conversation, but just somewhere in that mind, there is something going, oh, could do that. Or what about that? Or I haven't thought about, oh, tomorrow I must do this. And you're like, just for 2 minutes, can I just think about what the person is telling me about, not about everything else that's going on over there?
I think it's being able to compartmentalize those thoughts. So you have them, but you think, right, I'm going to put that to the back of there for a few minutes because I'm just about to do dinner. Or, you know, I have them and it is frustrating, like you're saying, but I just sort of put it to the side for a little bit of time until I'm ready to deal with it.
This is when you go shopping though, and you know, you're like, oh, that's nice packaging, or why would they put that in such a place, or I wonder how much the brand's paying for this promo, or you know.
That's when I start feeling the thickness of the card and going, oh, what the print? What have they used on that? I wonder how much that Corex has cost them per unit. It's my wife is just like, oh, for God's sake, please, just you're not coming shopping with me again.
Yeah. No,
guys, unfortunately, we're running out of time for today's episode. It's been amazing to meet you both. I've never met a brother-in-law and sister-in-law that work together, and it sounds like the perfect combination. It's been so lovely to hear the story, and we can't wait to see where Root Kitchen goes over the next 6, 12, 18 months. Hopefully we can all come back on the the show and find out what's been going on and where you've managed to take it. But just on behalf of James and myself, a huge thank you for joining us today. I appreciate that life is super busy. Taste testing did sound great, but actually I think after a few weeks the novelty would wear off. And so, Rich, I was going to offer to come and taste test, but I think I'll leave that in your very capable hands. But for those that are interested in Root Kitchen, please do visit rootkitchen.uk. Check out the website. There's some fantastic meals on there. They're a wonderful company. It'd be great for you guys to go and support them. But once again, on behalf of James and myself, a massive thank you to you both. I hope those listening enjoyed, and we look forward to seeing you on the next show. Many thanks.
Thank you very much for having us as well. It's been lovely to talk to you and meet you both. Thank you.
Yeah, cheers, guys.
Take care.
Thanks, guys. Take care.
Thank you.